NC pork. Good for the plate, great for the state. Welcome back to another week with the coaches, Tim Brewster and Jim Collins, here on Bold North State Football Daily on the North Carolina Sports Network. I am Mike Waddell, and let's go through our starting lineups. Up and to your right, he is the defensive coordinator, North State Football Daily. He has been a national champion with the Florida Gators. He's coached in the NFL with Washington, in the AAF with the world champion Orlando Apollos, and in the European League of Football with the Madrid Bravos, Jim Collins. And up and to your left, he is the greatest recruiter in the history of college football, the former head coach at the University of Minnesota, the former captain of the Fighting Illini of Illinois in the Rose Bowl. He has also coached in the NFL, developed Antonio Gates, class of 2025 inductee into Canton. We're talking about the one, the only Tim Brewster, right now the Prince of Pittsburgh. And guys, what a great weekend of college football here in the Bold North State. Duke 45-33 winners over NC State. Central Florida takes down North Carolina 34-9. And Syracuse destroys Clemson in Death Valley for only the first time since 2008. Clemson losing back-to-back home games in their historic stadium. Man, lots to talk about here, but guys, what stuck out to you? Brew, we'll start with you. What stuck out to you in this weekend of college football here in the Bold North State?
You had to have been impressed with Syracuse, going to Clemson. Syracuse has had a good football team. They're doing a nice job. But to go into Death Valley and go in there and turn Clemson into a 1-3. That's the first time in school history that Clemson is opened the season with 3 losses like that, I guess. It just really, I think, speaks volumes about where the program is at, where it needs to go. Obviously, Dabo after that game was very, very emotional. Some tears shed over the game, and but I thought that was the game that kind of really got my attention, because they didn't just beat Clemson, they thoroughly whipped them.
They absolutely did. We're going to talk more about that Clemson-Syracuse game a little bit later, and some very unique things that have been going on in Clemson games so far this season. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. Jimmy, you were over at Wallace Wade Stadium for the Duke-NC State game. You know that game well from the Duke perspective, having coached alongside Steve Spurrier and David Cutcliffe. What were your impressions of that big Duke win, 45-33? They left no doubt down the stretch.
Well, they didn't, and the Duke dominance became in an interesting way. It took over on an interesting play on a 2nd down and 10. Duke was called for holding. North Carolina State declined the penalty and left it at 3rd and 10. Duke converted at that point in time, and they were down 20-7 at that point in time. And they go score to convert it to make it 20-14, and then the rest is history from that point on. So the momentum with a missed extra point, which I didn't add, by the Wolfpack, it changed the entire game, and then that penalty decision led to a touchdown and just changed the entire momentum of the game.
And we've talked about over the last few weeks about what is the bottom line in this era of college football, and it's explosive plays. And Duke makes explosive plays, and an explosive quarterback talent is right over there in Durham. The former Tulane Greenway player coming off a very disappointing performance down in the Big Easy against his former team a week ago. Darian Mensah came back strong this week in this big ACC game for the Blue Devils.
Well, you bring up explosive plays, and I'm sure Tim has lots of ideas of that from the offensive side and from the defensive side. We always talk about when you start game planning that you have to limit explosive plays. And as you look at the end of the Duke North Carolina State game, they gave up two explosive plays late in the game in critical situations. One of them, a 4th and 1 situation from the 37-yard line, that they give up a touchdown pass of 37 yards. And then they've got a 3rd and 1, and they give up a 66-yard run for a touchdown. Not only were they explosive plays, but they were in critical situations where you've got a chance to change the momentum of the game and change the game around. And it'll be an interesting discussion. And I'm not second guessing what the NC State defense had called at that point in time, but players have to play sometimes. They got to put their eyes in the right place on the touchdown pass. I'm sure somebody was supposed to be covering. I know somebody was supposed to be covering the tight end at that point in time. Well, he let his eyes wander, and all of a sudden it's a 37-yard touchdown, and you've given up an explosive. So players have to execute, and coaches have to coach.
Players got to make plays. I mean, you can be the greatest coach in the world, but if you don't have the horses in the barn, you're not going to be able to win the Derby. And it just seems like more and more people just like to throw it down on the coaches. And me, for one, maybe at one point in time, I would have been the same way. But once you've been on the inside, and look who I'm talking to, two national championship coaches right here, Jim Collins at Florida and you, Tim Brewster at Florida State. Does it ever get frustrating when you are the head coach to continually hear it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault, make a change? Everybody's the expert, but in these cases, man, it really does come down to the guys on the field making plays.
We all know the territory. We know what we signed up for. Jim and I have been doing this for a long time, and I'm going to tell you what, they're going to shoot a bunch of arrows when things aren't going good. They're going to come after you. And that's just part of the game. What you have to do as a coach is you've got to block the noise out. You got to put blinders on. You got to stay focused on your preparation. You got to stay focused on your plan. And to me, coaches really need to take their part of the responsibility for a team not performing well. A team not executing well, and there's a reason why they're not executing well. And I think it's probably more something that we didn't get done in practice. We didn't rep a specific play, a specific situation enough. We needed to work it more. And that's what it's all about. It's just about, your preparation and the player's ability to grasp what it is you're trying to teach them, what it is we're trying to, put in the game plan. And then, like I said, just go out and execute it. If I've heard it once, I heard it 100 times. We just didn't execute well enough. We just didn't execute well enough. It's like a song of every coach out there, and we got to execute. End of story.
Let's do a little action reaction because, Brew, you're from the offensive side of the ball. Jim, you're from the defensive side. Let's start out with you, Brew. When you're trying to put together an offensive script and you're trying to look forward to what an explosive play could be, when do you know the right time to take that shot downfield or to call the draw play when everybody else is expecting a pass to the flats or maybe even a deep ball?
It's all about the situation, Mike. It's all about the situation that comes up, where we're at in the game, taking advantage of the situation. We just made an explosive play. Hey, now it's time to take a shot. And my thing always, Bill Walsh said, he came and spoke to us when I was at the University of Illinois, and he said, if you've got explosive plays, if you've got really, and I should say deceptive plays, don't keep them in your pocket. Call them. The sooner you call them, the better. Come out of the gate, and to me, I always look at the message that you're sending your team. What type of message am I sending my team? Well, we're going to be aggressive as hell. We're going to get after it. We're going to call reverses. We're going to call double passes. We're going to take advantage, keep the defense on their heels. Again, I don't want the defense running downhill at me. I want the defense on their heels, thinking about, what are these guys going to do next? And so, I think that the great coaches out there today, they're a little bit of riverboat gambler, and I like that. Who is it? Was Rivera Ron Rivera the riverboat gambler? Okay. Well, I mean, and I kind of subscribe to that theory myself, I mean, it really keeping the defense on their heels, off balance, is the key to success.
Jim, on the defensive side of the ball, how do you prepare to react in almost immediate fashion to when you see the tendencies coming to the line of scrimmage where you might be able to anticipate that explosive play opportunity for the offense?
Well, as you know, Mike, and you worked with him also. I worked for a long time for one of the best play callers that ever in the game, and that's Steve Spurrier. And you're talking about a creative guy that knew how to use trick plays. I call them trick. I hate the word trick plays, but plays that exploit the situation. And you just used an interesting word, and that word was react. And Brew, I think you'll agree with this. Offensive football is assignment football, and executing an assignment and carrying it out, identifying where the defense is aligned, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas defensive football is reaction football. Yes, we have assignments. Yes, we call blitzes, but you have to react to what the offense eventually does. So, as we go through and we train a defensive team, it's just like I'm going to go back and refer to the 4th and 1 37-yard touchdown against State with Duke on Saturday. I guarantee you the secondary coach for the Wolfpack told the corner, the safety, where his eyes needed to be on that play. But it was 4th and 1. They made a play action fake. He was going to get up there and he was going to stop it for a 2-yard loss. Well, he lost his eyes. So from a defensive standpoint, we have to coach. Not only we have to coach footwork, we have to coach eyes. You have to coach where the body is aligned. You have to coach all the little things. And I'm going to go back to that term again. Little things end up being big things. So as a coach, you have to cover all the little things to make sure you don't get caught in those situations. Now, I'm going to agree with Tim on this. We do have to share that responsibility. And I always hated this term that I'm going to use, or this saying that I'm going to use right now. When you turn the video on, and Brew, you know what's coming right now. When you turn the video on and you watch it, what you see on that video, either you're coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. One of the two. So it is a shared responsibility at that point in time. And I tell players all the time when we get ready to go into a game, all your mistakes on game day are mine. They're mine. Because if you make a mistake on game day, I haven't coached your ass well enough Monday through Friday if you make that mistake on Saturday.
Hey, Jim, I got another good one for you. I said, we are what we put on tape.
Oh, no doubt.
We are what we put on tape. End of story, right then and there, and so, we say, hey, we're this, we're that. What does the tape say we are? What is our record as a football team?
Whatever's on that video is what we're coaching. And if you're rushing for 60 yards in a game, then guess what? Your ass ain't blocking very many people, and you're not running. You're not doing very many good things at that point in time.
Struggling with clutter, calendar chaos, or nonstop notifications? Let Emily Parks at organizeforsuccess.com help you get organized and take control of your time. She's a North Carolina-based productivity pro who empowers busy people like you to work smarter and stress less. Visit organizeforsuccess.com and schedule your free discovery session today.
The Sunday here in the Bold North State for North Carolina football coach wasn't a very happy one because outside of Duke, nobody came home with the win. Dave Doran and his staff were licking their wounds after getting beat up over at Wallace Wade by the Blue Devils. Charlotte took it on the chin on Thursday night against Rice 28-17. East Carolina dropped one to BYU down at Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium 34-10. App State and Wake Forest, they had their weekends off, a little open date action, and North Carolina continued to look bad. 34-9. They got destroyed.
You know, they've got a bye week this week.
Right.
Okay. And then they play Clemson. Okay. Then they've got another bye week. Okay. What Coach Belichick and his staff have got to do, and they've got to do it in a hurry, is find some type of identity offensively. You know, they've got to figure it out. They've rushed for under 60 yards in 3 games. Okay. Under 60 yards in 3 games. And they're just not getting the production, the productivity that they've got to get, you know, and so this is I tell you what, most teams really look forward to that bye week. They're going to practice a little bit. They're going to get some time away, going to be able to sneak off. I sense that it's going to be a little bit different in Chapel Hill on this bye week right here. I think Coach Belichick is going to be getting after these kids' tails, and they've got a lot of improvement that's got to be done in a short period of time. And so they've got to go to work. They've got to identify what it is that they can do well. What can they do well? Can they throw the ball? Who is the thrower? Maybe it's time to put Max Johnson in there and let him be the guy, you know? And so I just think that that's the biggest thing with them is they in a short period of time, they got a lot of work to do.
No doubt. And I will say this, the turning point of that game, as if we want to talk about that, was the last minute and a half of the first half. It's a 13-3 game at that point in time. UCF takes a kickoff, takes it down the field, helped by 3 penalties, if I'm not mistaken, in the drive, 3 North Carolina penalties, and then a busted coverage for a touchdown, making the score 20-3 at halftime. Well, you know, that with the way the North Carolina offense is playing at this point in time, you're not coming back from that, and you're just fighting to hold on at that point in time. That goes back to just what we were just talking about earlier. You know, what are we going to do? How can we improve? How can we coach these guys better? Do we have the right guys on the field at this point in time? Or do we need to make changes all across the field? Who knows, man? It'll be interesting over the next 26 days, as you say. Unfortunately, Clemson has a bye week also leading into that game.
Well, let's talk about that. North Carolina, again, 4 games in 20 days to start September. And now the Tar Heels hit that unusual stretch. I've never really seen anything like this, to where they'll have only 2 games in the next 26 days. 1 game every 5 days to start the season, and now 1 game every 13 days over the next month. So the question is, guys, do you push harder in practice, create position battles, maybe even reevaluate staff and responsibilities, or is that overreaction? From the fans' point of view, Brew, man, the fans want heads, but is that the prudent measure for Coach Belichick and Mike Lombardi, the general manager of Carolina football, to embark upon?
Well, I think that what's got to happen, Mike, is there's got to be competition. I mean, they've got to create an environment in practice that is going to expose the good players and expose the bad players. You know, and I think that that's absolutely critical. That I don't see them backing away. I don't see Coach Belichick backing away at all. I think he's got to turn this thing up. I think he's got to stir this thing up, and I think he's got to get guys in the lineup, and he's got to see what they can do. And because the most important thing he can do against Clemson is line up with the right guys. Line up with his best 11 on offense, defense, and the kicking game, and make certain that the kicking game is really bringing value, really spending some extra time in your on special teams and really taking advantage of the field position game. I've always thought, and Urban Meyer said this, hey, every time the offense goes on the field, let's just get 2 first downs. Let's get 2 first downs. We go 2 first downs and we punt the ball, we flip the field. Okay. And so, just playing sharp situationally. And I think that's probably one of the things that the fans are disappointed about in Chapel Hill is that it doesn't look like a real well-coached football team.
Jim, you just got back from Madrid where you had to go to a whole other continent and you had to learn an entire roster in very short period of time before you started your European League of Football season. You did the same with Coach Spurrier in Orlando. You've done it anytime you've gone to a new environment as an assistant coach at Duke or Florida, at Appalachian State, any of the places where you've been on the sideline. How long does it take for you to figure out what you have to deal with? Because when we were talking before the season, all 3 of us, man, I don't think any of us thought Carolina was going to be very good. You had people like there's a reporter in Fayetteville thought they were going to be in the college football playoff, which means he knows absolutely nothing about football. But guys, when you're in this position and your job is to evaluate this, how early do you know that you don't have the players? Because, you got to get the guys, as you said, Brew, the right guys on the field. But if you don't have the talent, what do you do as a coach?
Well, you have to coach them well, and you have to have some degree of team spirit and team camaraderie that they're going to. And I'm not saying North Carolina doesn't have that, because I'm not in their locker room. Right. I'm not on their sideline or any of those things. But at the same time, we're in a completely different world now, where whether it's high school players or whether it's transfer portal, when you transition 70 players onto your team and 40 of them came after spring practice, I don't know how they don't even know each other's names. I guarantee you there's part of that locker room, they don't even know the guy that's dressing three lockers down from them. So that makes their job even more difficult. So we are what North Carolina fans and everybody needs to realize at this point in time is that the University of North Carolina is in a huge rebuilding process. And how long that process is going to take is up to how many players decide that they want to play for this staff and play at the University of North Carolina. And the other thing that's important in this day and time is how much money does the University of North Carolina have to spend on quality players? Because that's where we are in this day and time. We're in the players want to know. They don't care. They don't care about how much. Most of them don't care about the education and all that anymore. They care about how much you're going to pay me right now.
Brew, how do you keep a team together when this noise from the outside starts to get loud, like it's about to get in Chapel Hill?
You can coach a kid really, really hard on the field if that kid genuinely believes you care about them. And I think what you have to do in this situation is you've got to spend, as you're leaving the practice field and you may have jumped on a guy or you've been hard on a guy, you grab him around the neck and say, hey, bud, listen, I love you to death and all I'm trying to do is help you. I want you to be the best football player that you can possibly be and just, feel good about my passion and energy trying to improve you as a player. And I think that the relationship with those staff members that they create, I think you got to be unique. You got to do some different things and bring the team together and really, really make these kids feel like, hey, you know what? We genuinely are a team. And this football team's good enough to go win games, okay? But we've really got to come together. And I think it's a tremendous challenge for Coach Belichick and his staff. I really do. It's a tremendous challenge for him and his staff and also that football team. How committed are they to wanting to put a great product on the field? It's going to be very, very interesting to see them down the stretch. And they've got a tough schedule now. I don't see a whole bunch of wins finishing up the season for the Tar Heels. I mean, and they may go win them all, but I mean, they've got some really tough football games coming down the stretch.
This discussion all started with what you do with an open date, especially with an open date, play a game, and then another open date. And I think it all depends on where you are as a team and at what level that you performed at in the prior games leading into this. Obviously, we've got a team that struggled greatly going into these open dates. So their approach to what they're going to do will be completely different than somebody that's sitting here at 4-0 and is ranked in the top 15 in the country or the top 25 in the country at this point in time. Bruce said this earlier, we've got to find the players that can make plays, that can go out and keep us in games and give us an opportunity to win games at the end. And so many games in college football right now go down to the last 7 minutes, last 8 minutes of the game.
Shoot, the last possession, Jim, right?
Yeah. Last possession of the game they go down to, and you've got to be able to perform in those critical situations. And Brew, I think you'll appreciate what I'm going to say right now. What you have to coach also from an offensive standpoint and a defensive standpoint is that the best that we can hope for is that every possession ends in some type of a kick. Some type of a kick, whether it be a field goal, an extra point, a punt, or whatever it may be. Make sure it ends with a kick.
Hey, Jim, I love that you said that. Jimbo Fisher, he said that every game I ever coached with him for 6 years, every possession must end in a kick. And if you do that, if offensively you go on the field and you get 2 first downs, think about that, right, Jim? You get 2 first downs and then you have to punt, you flip the field. You've turned the field over from a field position standpoint. And so but we all know this. Carolina's got to figure out who the trigger guy is going to be. Who's their trigger guy, and put all their faith and trust into that guy, and just have at it. I mean, that position right there will dictate, how much success they have down the stretch.
I guess what you're saying, Brew, is that you got to find who your leader is on the field, because you can have coaches that have these great reputations, but it's still a player's game. Right.
No question.
So, right now, when adversity hits like it's hitting in Chapel Hill, what's more important? A head coach's personal connection with players or player-led leadership when coaches aren't around? Now, I want you both to answer this, and you can't say both. You got to choose. Is it the head coach's personal connection with the players or player-led leadership that is the key to getting the script flipped?
Player-led teams are the best teams I've ever been on. The leadership that you get when coaches aren't around in the locker room, that's going to determine the success of your football team. They're not going to. There's not going to be no bitching, or it ain't going to be, and you're not going to have these little groups of guys. They're off in this corner over here, and then you got another group over here, and then you got and you don't have nothing that way, And so I think without a doubt, the best teams I've ever been associated with were led by men, okay, who wasn't afraid to let a guy know on the football team, no, that's not how we do things, okay? We don't do things. That's not our standard. There's got to be a standard to your football team. What is our standard? And we're going to adhere to that standard both on the field and off the field. I think off the field stuff is the most critical stuff that you can be in. You got a kid who's getting himself in a situation he doesn't need to be in. Good teammates are going to find a way to get him out of that. Get him home, get him, and so yeah, I kind of made that a little bit long-winded, Mike, but I think the players, that's the deal for me.
Coach Spurrier had that air about him that our teams always develop that same air of confidence, and I'm going to use a word that I don't really love, but I'm going to use it anyway, and that cockiness.
Mm-hmm.
But let me also add, I'm gonna go back on that side of it and say that our championship teams that I've been a part of and with him, they all had great locker room leadership. And that's why in the NFL and in pro football, you search for the guys that can that can walk in that locker room and control the locker room. I'm going to use Coach Belichick for example. I mean, here's a guy that's won 6 friggin' Super Bowls as a head coach and 2 more as an assistant coach. He's been in a lot of locker rooms and seen a lot of great leadership, and he is a great leader without a doubt. But when you've got the Bradys and the Vrabels and the Brewskis and those people that are leading your locker room, that's how it's your selection process of who's in that locker room. So you've got to select the right guys that fit what your personality is and what the personality that you want your team to have. So we're going right back now to 70 new players on the University of North Carolina. How well did they know these 70 new players? I don't know. I'm not in their building. I don't know what their process is with Mike Lombardi for selecting those players. But I heard one of the greatest coaches of all time by the name of Nick Saban. Nick Saban made this statement on national TV. He said, be careful whom you're selecting. He said, because you may be taking somebody else's SHIT. Okay, so with that being said, have we taken somebody else's shit at this point in time?
Going back to 96 in Florida, who was the on-field leader that really propelled the Gators to have that championship medal?
We had one on each side of the ball, without a doubt. Danny Werfel was the unquestioned leader of our offense and the unquestioned leader of our football team. But on defense, we had a free safety by the name of Lawrence Wright. Lawrence Wright was a kid from Miami, Florida, that had come up hard, a tough life, but he fit right into the atmosphere at the University of Florida. He was tough. I still can picture the play against the University of Tennessee at Tennessee that he absolutely blew up. Probably would have been thrown out of the game this day and time for targeting, but changed the entire makeup of the game. He was our leader on defense. Our players at that point in time, we would finish practice. They would go into the locker room. They had wiffle ball bats and balls, and they had teams, and they played a wiffle ball tournament in the locker room every day after practice because they enjoyed being with each other. And that camaraderie and that ability to control who is in the locker room and what is being said not only transcends to the playing field, it transcends to what you do in public. Tim said it. What you do in the nightclub out at night, whether a guy's in trouble there and you yank his ass out of there and take him home, it's all about how you mesh together.
The greatest individual leader that I've seen in college football is Jameis Winston.
Right.
It was absolutely amazing, his leadership. Now, he wasn't always most politically correct guy. He wasn't always, he may not say the right thing at the right thing. But I'm just going to tell you, in the fourth quarter of football games, you want him under center because we won 29 games in a row with him as the starting quarterback at Florida State. Absolutely amazing, and we were down big in a bunch of them games, and Jameis just refused to lose. His competitive fire on the field was, the single most competitive guy that I was around in college football was the defensive back, Jalen Ramsey. Okay.
Wow.
Jalen Ramsey. I'm going to tell you, one day he liked to kill Jameis. He comes off the edge. They're bringing a dadgum cowboy off the edge. He's the corner, and he hits Jameis right in the face. I've never seen Jimbo Fisher so mad in all his life. He climbed all over Jalen Ramsey. What in the world are you doing? This is our quarterback. and Jalen just, I mean, he was in that mind frame, and I'm gonna tell you what now, Jimbo, he produced some competitive practices. I mean, I'm talking about we competed like crazy. And guys like Telvin Smith. Telvin Smith was a linebacker for us at Florida State. And I mean, I'm talking, he goes to the National Football League and leads them in tackling as a rookie, you know? And so, we just had a tremendous competitive spirit at Florida State. And I loved how Jimbo created practice to me. One time, Jim, you'll appreciate this. We're in spring practice, okay? We're in spring practice going into that 2013 season. We went 27 straight plays inside the 2-yard line on the goal line. 27 straight plays. And Nick O'Leary, my tight end, he was in there for all 27 of those plays. I mean, he liked to die. And I'm going to tell you what now, but you talk about, really competing and creating that environment that you got to have. And that's the thing that made us so good at Florida State was the fact that our practices were so competitive. I mean, our 2-minute drill on Thursday would make you'd cringe. You'd say, I mean, we're blowing guys up, and we're trying to win the 2-minute drill instead of But I mean, you know what? I just think it was all part of what allowed us to win a bunch of games, and the competitive spirit of those kids was amazing.
I got to ask you about Nick O'Leary. What did you learn from his grandfather about being a ferocious competitor?
Jack Nicklaus is the finest, nicest man I've ever met in my life. Okay, so Mr. Nicklaus, and I call him Mr. out of just pure respect, he was at every single game his grandson played. Every single game. I came out at every single game out of the locker room, and Mr. Nicklaus would be there, and I always walked over and said hello to him. Not one time did he ever ask me anything about the game. He always, how's your wife? How's your kids? How's your family? I mean, he's just an amazing human being, and his lovely wife and and so yeah. But I'm going to tell you what now. He was an amazing competitor as well, and it makes sense. Nick O'Leary, I mean, here's a guy that wasn't quite tall enough, he wasn't quite big enough, but all he did was excel on the football field, and he was an outstanding. But he ended up playing, I think, 7 years in the National Football League.
From Friday night lights to championship moments, the North Carolina High School Athletic Association makes it all happen. Supporting student athletes across the state, the NCHSAA is the heart of high school sports in North Carolina. Learn more and get involved at nchsaa.org. That's nchsaa.org. The North Carolina High School Athletic Association, where champions are made.
Look, we all know Dabo Swinney. The guy's a heck of a competitor. And he's been under fire. I mean, they lose to LSU. They play very poorly, but get the win at home against Troy. They go to Georgia Tech and take the loss. And then again, this past weekend, they just don't show up. And Fran Brown and Syracuse just open up a can in Death Valley. And now they've had 2 games stalled by these weather delays. And I found that interesting. Because, we all know Dabo, man, he's connected to the Almighty, but it's almost like somebody's trying to tell him something. It's like, look, you got to say something to this team.
I think it's a great opportunity for you as an individual position coach to get with your group of guys and really just dissect what we saw, dissect what was going on the field, and in a very calm demeanor. There don't need in a weather delay. If coaches are in there screaming and hollering, and that ain't a good sign. That ain't a good deal, because you're probably getting your ass beat, and you're probably going to continue to get your ass beat, if that's the case. So I think you just calmness under duress, and just understanding that, hey, you know what? Let me as a coach, I got to find a way to help my players play better, and really. Now you've got the tablets so that you can look at the tablets in the locker room, on the sideline, really get a great look of exactly what's going on the field. And so But I think, it's a great opportunity to just relax. I've been in a bunch of weather delays. You eat some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, eat some bananas, eat some whatever it may be, and have a shake maybe, but just kick back and relax, man. I mean, I think that's and Jim, I'd be interested to see what your thoughts were, because I know this, you played in a bunch of weather down in Florida.
It depends on what situation that you're in. I mean, when you're in that locker room for an hour and a half, and most of the visiting locker rooms, and Clemson was at home, fortunately, that you're so packed in there that you're lying all over each other, and you're just trying to move around, and people trying to go to the bathroom and et cetera and do all that. It's you're just trying to survive, and most of them are hot as hell in there anyway. So you're just trying to get, hey, let's get calmed down. If we're winning the game, let's keep doing what we're doing. If we're not winning, let's figure out what we can do. It's like an extended halftime. But I'm going to give you some numbers here on the Clemson Tigers, okay? And I'll tell you where the frustration is with Clemson right now. And you don't have to look very far when you go to Clemson had 29 first downs in that game, but they were 3 out of 13 on third down. 3 out of 13, Brew. Okay. Here's another number. They were 1 out of 5 on fourth down.
Wow.
So they were forced into the fourth down situations. Okay. They had 503 total yards to 435 for Syracuse, 363 yards passing. Let me ask you this, Brew. When was the last time that you ever saw Clemson throw the ball 60 times?
Yeah, that's too much, Jim. That's too much. And I think one of the things that I've seen, and I think maybe Jim, that you can expound on this too a little bit, is they just got to be more physical running the ball. They're a zone team and they're a side to side team. There's no vertical push with the run game, and I just think that the identity for the Clemson Tigers, they've got to be able to run the ball.
Need insurance? Go to a team that's got your back. The Lawson Insurance Group, run by the Lawson brothers, right here in Raleigh. They deliver real service, smart protection, and the kind of trust that's hard to find these days. Find them online by searching Lawson Insurance Group. That's LAWSON, Lawson Insurance Group, and tell them DG sent you.
Army and East Carolina are going to kick off week number 5 of the football week here in the Baltimore State this week. That'll be down in Greenville at Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium. And the question is, how tough is it, Jim? We're going to come to you. How tough is it for East Carolina to focus now on Jeff Monken and trying to stop that triple option offense from West Point?
Extremely difficult, without a doubt. That is a challenge that in my time at Duke that we experienced on 2 levels, and that was that we had to usually play. We almost annually played Army or Navy, and sometimes both in a single season. So we would actually dedicate practice time in spring practice to defending the option, to defending what they did in spring practice. Depending on where we played them in the season, we would take a day in preseason practice. I say a day, we would take a period, a couple of days a week, and we would work on Army or Navy at that point in time. And let's keep it to Army since that's who East Carolina plays. And now this is going into week 5. We would have practiced on Mondays if we were a Monday practice team, or on Sunday if we were a Sunday practice team. You have to give, a lot of people may not know this out there in the public, you have to give the players a day off. Some people give them Sunday off, some people give them Monday off. I've done it both ways. But whichever day that we practiced, we would take a 15-minute period on that day, and we would practice against Army leading up to that game, because what they do is so different. So that's a huge challenge for East Carolina coming up this Thursday night.
So I was coaching at the University of North Carolina. I believe it was early 90s. We played Army at Army, okay? And beautiful Saturday up there in New York, and it just so happened that giving Army their pregame speech that day was a guy named General Norman Schwarzkopf. Okay. He just finished with leading our troops in Desert Storm. And he goes and you can only imagine what the heck his speech was, right? I mean, he got those guys came out, and I'm talking about they played their tails off. They cut us. The thing about playing Army is the players that you lose in the game, the players that the next week's game. I'm going to tell you what, we looked like an absolute mash unit getting on the plane. We won the ball game. It was a tough, hard fought victory. We won the ball game, but I'm just going to tell you what, we almost didn't have enough guys to play the following week, and against that triple option. They freaking butt you, they'll cut you, I'm telling you what, General Schwarzkopf had them playing out of their minds, and so it's no bowl of cherries playing against these guys, man.
Looking for the best food in Wrightsville Beach? Check out King Neptune Restaurant, owned by our friends Jimmy and Keaton Galeese. With fresh seafood, tasty steaks, creative cocktails, and the perfect beachside vibe, it's gotta be on your must-visit list. Whether you're grabbing a weekend lunch or brunch, enjoying dinner and drinks, or catching up with friends at the bar, King Neptune is the place to be. That's King Neptune Restaurant in Wrightsville Beach.
North Carolina State, coming off the loss to Duke, will now entertain Philip Montgomery, the interim head coach of Virginia Tech and the Hokies. Tech coming off that 38-6 win over Wofford this past weekend. Man, Brew, you know exactly what he feels like. You took over for Bip Poggi last year in Charlotte. You had to get the Niners on a roll and did a hell of a job down the stretch in getting Charlotte to playing probably some of, if not, the best football in the history of that program. You should be the head coach in Charlotte right now. But what's Philip Montgomery trying to get established with Virginia Tech as they're trying to make it now 2 in a row after a very disappointing start that unfortunately cost Brent Pry his job?
Philip Montgomery's trying to bring some life to the program. You're in a tough situation with a coaching change, and so Philip, I'm sure wants those kids to know that, hey, we're going through a tough time. We're all in it. I'm sure, Philip Montgomery feels very badly for Brent Pry. Here's a guy who hired him and gave him a chance. But Philip did a nice job last week. He's got a big task at hand this week. But I think that the biggest thing he can do is make it fun for those kids. And really, again, give them direction, give them leadership, give them a blueprint of exactly what it's going to do. I felt like as a head coach, this is what I tried to do every game was give my guys a blueprint to win the game. If we will do these things right here, we will find a way to win this game. If our energy's right, if we're doing things, but the blueprint for success has got to be adhered to. And I think that's I'm sure that's what Philip's trying to get done there. And like I said, have a little fun with his team, in a tough situation.
Coach D'Lo Dow-Loggins is the first-year head coach of Appalachian State. They're coming off a open week this past weekend after getting throttled at Southern Miss the week before. And Jim, now the Mountaineers have to go from the Appalachian Mountains out to the Boise Mountains as they'll take on the Broncos of Boise State on the Smurf turf out there. There's a big road test for Appalachian State. And I know you and I both know Bob Saunders really well. You know him really well, along with Clyde the Glide Christensen, who is on the offensive side of the ball, where Bob is on the defensive side of the ball with the Mountaineers. How do you feel like they use their open date to prepare and construct a game plan to go out and play in this big intersectional rivalry against the Broncos?
Obviously, you're talking about veteran coaches, and not only those two, Clyde and Bob, that have extensive careers in the NFL, and you're talking about Clyde that's coached both the Mannings and and Tom Brady and all those. If you coach Tom Brady, I don't know if you coach Tom Brady very much. But at the same time, you're talking about a lot of experience, and they spent their time wisely the last week to 10 days, and they'll have a team that'll go to Boise and be well prepared at this point. But it'll be a challenge to go out on the blue turf when you start traveling all across the country, and you start exchanging time zones, and I have no idea whether they'll fly out there on Thursday and spend Friday to get acclimated and then play on Saturday. That'll be an interesting process that you go through, but it'll be a challenge for them to go to Boise. I think Boise is Boise 1-2-1 at this point in time, so it'll be a challenge for them on the turf out there.
Brew, you know what it's like to coach and play at altitude. You've done it with the Broncos. You've done it at the University of Colorado. Can you get acclimated in a short amount of time to playing at that height?
No, I think that, like, I'm never a believer of a 2-day trip. I know, in the NFL and in some of our trip with Jimbo Fisher, he liked a 2-night trip. I like to get in, get out as quickly as possible. I'm not going to acclimate. We're going to acclimate ourselves a little bit but you know what? There's not a whole lot you can do. You can have some oxygen on the sidelines. When I was with the Denver Broncos, there was a sign outside the locker room door that said, "You are now at 7,000 feet." And the Denver Broncos have the winningest home record in the history of the National Football League, and so, but I think all that stuff hey, if you got a good team, we'll line up and go get them.
Brent Key has a good team at Georgia Tech. They'll be at a Legacy Stadium in Winston-Salem against the Demon Deacons this weekend. And then Duke goes on the road to Syracuse. Guys, this is the last game we're going to talk about in this episode of Bold North State Football Daily. Duke and Syracuse. The Blue Devils coming off the big win over NC State. Syracuse coming off the big road win over Clemson. What do you see in this game? Jim, we'll start with you, and then Tim, you can put a cap on it.
Well, I think number one is who's going to play quarterback for the Orange at this point in time, with the announcement today that their quarterback is probably torn his Achilles and is out for the season. I only saw part of that game, and I'm not sure at what point in the game that happened. I saw him get hurt early in the game and then come back and play. So obviously it had to happen after that later on in the game. But he's a critical part of their offense. Fran Brown is a very energetic, very up-tempo type coach. So it'll be a challenge for Duke to go play in the Dome and meet that challenge up there. But man, he's done a great job with Duke, bringing them back from a loss against Tulane, and we start to figure, you start comparing teams now. All of a sudden, we look at an Illinois team that Duke lost to, gave up 45 points to. Well, guess what? They play Indiana and give up 63 to Indiana. 63-10, they lose to the Hoosiers of Indiana. So go figure what's going on in college football right now. If you can predict who's worth a crap and who's not, you're much smarter than I am.
The two guys that have really got my attention this year that have just done an amazing job coaching, and there's a whole lot more than this, but Brent Key, at Georgia Tech, and Fran Brown at Syracuse. Those two guys right there, I'm going to tell you what, I want to see who's got more juice, Manny Diaz or Fran Brown before that game up in the Carrier Dome. Did you see Fran Brown before the game against Clemson? I mean, I'm talking about he looked like one of the players. He's high-fiving, chest bumping, sprinting all over. It was just, he's impressive. Fran Brown is an impressive guy. Yes. I love guys. If you love football, football will love you back. Well, I'm going to promise you this much. Fran Brown loves football, and I'm going to tell you what, football's loving Fran Brown back right now because he's doing I mean, I'm gonna tell you what, Jim, is he? I mean, he's doing one hell of a job at Syracuse. I coached my first game as a head coach was in the Carrier Dome. Okay, I played in the Carrier Dome. The craziest thing in the world about the Carrier Dome is it's the world's biggest, largest air conditioning manufacturer, and the place doesn't have air conditioning. No air conditioning in that place. And I'm gonna tell you, it's hotter than four hells in there. And I mean, it will be a tremendous challenge for Manny. But I'm gonna tell you what, I think Jim said it. Manny's done one hell of a job with his
Great
football
job.
team too. He's done a great job at Duke. Duke is a good football team. I think that they came off of a very tough loss, and I'll tell you what, they responded the way that a good football team's supposed to respond. And so I think that that's going to be one hell of a battle royale up there in the Carrier Dome. And but I tell you what, I just think Fran Brown right now, Fran Brown's got his football team playing at a different level. I think they're really, really good, and I think it's going to be a tough win for Duke.
I'm 1-1 in the dome, and you'll be interested to know the loss was with the University of Florida, and the win was with the Duke Blue Devils, if you can believe that. So you would think it would have probably been the other way, but that's how it went. But I'm going to say this. I watched Manny Diaz as his team left the field after pregame warm-up on Saturday. I was at the game. I watched him go up into the stands, and I watched him go into the student section and run down all along the student section and high five all the students. Very impressive. Manny has fit into the Duke atmosphere and has done a wonderful job there. And it's a challenge there. I mean, when you line up there, and I would say probably Saturday in that game, it was probably 60% Duke fans and 40% NC State fans. So it was not like it was a hugely partisan crowd for the Blue Devils.
My youngest son, Nolan, was a safety at the University of Texas, and his defensive coordinator was Manny Diaz. And my son has tremendous respect for Manny. He said, Dad, he said, I'm going to tell you what, he's the most energetic guy that he's ever been around, but he's not just energetic, but he's a hell of a ball coach.
No, he is.
He
Yeah.
knows football, and I think that those are the type guys. And I think Fran Brown's the same way. I think Brent Key. I mean, the guys that are having success, they bring energy. I think that they're very likable guys, and they just know ball. There ain't no bullshit about them. These guys, the BS guys, they get exposed awful fast. The guys that really know ball and can relate to kids, they're the ones that you want to saddle up with.
This past weekend, our Old North State tailgate not only was in Durham for the Big Four rivalry game between the Wolfpack and the Blue Devils, but we were also over at Truist Stadium on the campus of North Carolina A&T for the 103rd playing of the Aggie Eagle Classic. And Trey Oliver and North Carolina Central, guys, 62-20 over your rival, 745 yards of total offense, 399 through the air, 346 on the ground. Wow. And they had the ball for 35 minutes. This was a total demolition of a rival. Now, Sean Gibbs is in his first year at North Carolina A&T, and he's going to get that program back on track. It's going to take some time, though, to catch up to what the Eagles are doing over at North Carolina Central. And I know that both of you guys have friends on the Eagles coaching staff.
I'm thrilled to death for Central, and Trey's done an amazing job. They've got Tim Cross coaching the defensive line. They got Brian Simmons coaching their nickels as an analyst. He's got a heck of a staff, but I'm just going to tell you, Trey has put together a roster, okay? And I'm going to tell you what now. He's got a group of kids. He's got a football team there that can go to most places and compete at a very high level. So hats off to those guys over there in Durham, the North Carolina Central.
Boy, it was a lot of fun down there. I want to thank Brian Holloway and the staff at North Carolina A&T, their athletics director, Earl Hilton, for having us and showing us the great hospitality that we have every year when we go to that game. And it's rivalries like that that make these shows fun to talk about. And we've had a ball today. You guys are outstanding. There is no better collection of football intelligence anywhere than with the 10 Jim Show. You have to snap into your football knowledge right here with the 10 Jim. This is going just like Slim Jim. See, we're trying to go a little play on words there. But guys, have a great football week. I'm sporting my Kathy Brewster design t-shirt today. Right here. Look at that. Little Football America. We're going to talk more about that. We have Live Like Bryant up there on Jim's head talking about his incredible young grandson. Great foundation right there. It's all about family right here on Bold North State Football Daily. I love you guys. Thank you very much for another great week here on the North Carolina Sports Network.
This has been Bold North State Football Daily, an exclusive presentation of the North Carolina Sports Network. Make sure you follow us on social media at the NC Sports Net, and check out our website that is wall-to-wall coverage of North Carolina sports at ncsportsnetwork.com. Our foundational partner is the North Carolina Pork Council, raising the bacon, raising the bar. Telling the stories of the bold North State. This is the North Carolina Sports Network.